It seems like today, book buying and the books everybody's reading is dictated very much by book talk and hype trains, and not so much what may be interesting to the individual. Rather, what we're told is the most interesting or the prettiest read to have on the shelf. Now, this isn't a bad thing. Book talk and what is popular has opened me up to a lot of books that I really enjoyed that I might not have otherwise picked up. But there are also a fair amount of books that are only sold because they are popular and not objectively good. And these books are always from major publishing houses who can afford to have the pretty sprayed edges and the huge marketing campaign, while a lot of indie books really go under the radar. So, here are a number of books that you should read if you need a break from the popular, if you need a break from the hype train, if you want something that is interesting just to you, check out these books. First up, we all know how much I despise Onyx Storm and Iron Flame and the whole Fourth Wing series and the hype around it. This is going to be the only book where I'm like, don't read this instead. But if you are into romantasy, if you like the fantasy, if you like romance, that kind of genre, but you want something with a little bit more edge to it, something that will connect on a much deeper level, a book that has so much more to say than just dragons and smut. Here's a book recommendation for you. This is Fate's Tether by Jay Neoma. From the back, it reads, "It has been nearly 50 years since Queen Cosmia Aphelion became captive in her own kingdom, the Area Archipelago, where the three skybound islands sit miles above the surface of planet Halos. With powers of fate and time manipulation, she seeks one end goal: to free herself and her kingdom from its toxic captor, her husband. Aurelio's manipulative control over her and her magic leaves lasting impressions on their world and Cosmia's sanity. The king's destructive ways have tormented her for decades, leaving her a shell of who she once was. The Ambrosi, immortal beings, and Rainy, powerful winged guardians, exist to care for the world and all its inhabitants. But their protection falters beneath Aurelio's rule, leaving clans of vampires, shifters, and witches to band together and protect their planet alone. The threat to their world becomes more than Cosmia can ignore, and with a leap of faith, she embarks on a life-changing journey toward freedom. With angels, immortals, mysterious crystals, and otherworldly beasts, Fate's Tether follows Cosmia's fight for redemption, reclamation of her power, and revenge. She pushes herself to new heights and new lows in this beautiful tale of survivorship and growth." I really like this book. I thought it was really good. I also got a special copy with like, here, check this out. These like inlay artworks. So I'm very lucky. I'm glad I got that. And unlike Onyx Storm, this book is actually very well written. This was definitely the highlights of my reads for 2024. I highly recommend it if you like fantasy and romance, and want something that you can actually like latch onto, emotionally connect with, share with friends. Also, $1 from every sale of this book goes to Control Alt Delete to help survivors of domestic abuse. So read it, get a great read, and it goes to a great cause. Next up, these books. These books are great. The Thrawn trilogy, if you have read anything Star Wars, you've probably read the Thrawn trilogy. These books deserve all the praise they get. But while these books get the deserved praise, one Star Wars book really goes under the radar. I know this isn't indie, this might be a bit of a cheat, but Star Wars Lost Stars. I've never heard anybody else talk about this book. This is a story of two friends who grow up on a backward planet, but as they grow older, one joins the rebellion and one joins the Empire. And it's kind of a romance book. This is Star Wars romance, and it blew me away how invested I was with the Disney era EU. This book is so freaking good. Highly recommend it. I mean, it does start out a little cliche, like it's like he joins the rebellion and she joins the empire, and we can all guess where loyalties will lie by the end of the book, but the adventure, the journey getting there is so endearing. I loved it. Breaking away, these next books, I can't really comment on. Colleen Hoover. I have never read any of her books. I know there's a lot of controversy around her. Some people really love her. I've only seen the section in her book about the child's, you know, that passage. So I really have no interest in reading her, but I know that genre, the contemporary drama, is very popular. So if you like that kind of stuff, not just Colleen Hoover, but something more human, the Second Act Comeback was in my top 5 reads of last year. This is a story of a guy who has grown up living with domestic abuse and has severe insecurities and is now trapped in a loveless and very toxic marriage. And it poses this question: is it ever too late to redeem yourself? Is it ever too late to grab life by the reins again and take control? This book, absolutely phenomenal. I was reading this on my honeymoon. Like, I went to Disney and Universal, and with all like the long waits, I was reading this book. I remember we were at like we were on the Harry Potter train, the Hogwarts Express, and I was glad the line was so long because I was so invested in this. Like, I just wanted to read it. So, Second Act Comeback, check it out. So freaking good. Next up, last fall especially, I always try to branch out in my reading. I don't like to stick to just one genre. I want to get a large palette on my shelf. So I tried reading some of those cheesy Hallmark romance books like The Pumpkin Spice Cafe and Light Lark Farms. I couldn't do it. I can see why people love them so much, but it's just not for me. But if that is your kind of book, here's one we can find common ground on. This is Bookends by Ella Hayes. This is a really fun character study disguised as a Hallmark movie. The book is about a bookstore employee, like a hole in the wall kind of place, not very sociable, doesn't get out much, always just escapes into her stories. That is until she meets and falls in love with her favorite author, who just wanders into her store one day. It's very cutesy, but it's kind of like this warning against falling too deeply into escapism. Escapism is a wonderful thing. It can get us through a lot of our problems. It can be a light in dark times. But to only have that, to not see what's in front of you, I didn't expect to like this book so much. I got into it because I thought it'd be fun. And then by the end, I was just absolutely in love with these characters. Great book. Great book. And lastly, Stephen King. I'm a fan of Stephen King. I love the guy. Well, not the guy. I don't love the guy, but I love his books. So this one was a little hard to choose from, which book to use as a comparison. But a friend of mine gave me his copy of Cycle of the Werewolf. This is a super quick read, super fun. It literally takes you like an hour to get through. And I chose that because of all the Stephen King books, it's probably the closest in readability to Thrall by J.T. McGee. This is a book that is heavily inspired by Stephen King and H.P. Lovecraft and writers like that. It is a story of, it's a novella, actually. You could read it on a rainy weekend, probably the best time to read it, of these two cops, like old school detectives, who find a body in the rich end of town that is not left the way anybody should find a body. And it really leads them down this mystery of an occult organization, an ancient evil that's been pulling the strings all over the world. And at the same time, it's the story of these two estranged brothers, the sons of this person who was found dead, as they're being manipulated, pulled apart, and pitted against each other by this same organization. It's a great mystery. It's a lot of fun. It's a quick read. And it also just released a sequel. Another quick read that's getting great reviews. Highly recommend it. Thrall and Enthralled by J.T. McGee. Now, obviously, I can't talk about books with sharing my own. Empire of the Void and Lost World of the Void. This is the double feature hardcover. Look at these pretty page borders. So pretty. If you like this kind of stuff, film, Star Wars, Flash Gordon, Planet of the Apes, classic sci-fi cinema, check this one out. This is a lot of fun. It's a romance, it's adventure, it's thrills, it's comedy. It's just a great frickin' time. It's a married couple lost in space, stumble upon an evil empire led by a godlike being. And when I say godlike, he's a lot to handle. and it's their fight to find each other again and find some sanctuary in the universe. It's great. So if you need a good book, check any of these out. The links will be in the caption below. Please give them a read. Let me know what you think of these. Any other recommendations you would have based on these books, based on the popular books. If you like this, read this kind of stuff. Let me know in the comments. And yeah, I think that's it.